Hello, here I am today to share with you the start of book 2. As I promised, I would share with you once a month my progress on the book, so hopefully you'll see big advancements from one month to the next. So I have worked on the book, don't get me wrong. I've come up with the ideas, I've kind of worked through, thrown things out, brought things back in, and I actually started writing it when I got motivated one day to sit down and just start blurbing it out, we'll say. And I realized that being me, I need more structure to it. So in the 38 hours of car driving time, I created a little bit more structure, tweaked a few things, and now I feel like being back here, I'm gonna be my big grown-up self and sit on the floor and almost do arts and crafts to get, I need to see it. I'm a very visual person. So I'm not saying my way is the right way. I'm not saying your way is the right way, because we're each individuals. And I just want you to see what my process is, because once again, if you followed me at all, you know that I was a business major. I worked in insurance for 30 years, in real estate for another 20, and writing wasn't what I did until I wrote book 1. And so I'm still learning this, and I am just a firm believer, and we find what works for us. We can read Stephen King or Anne Lamott or whoever it is to find different things that may fit into our little toolbox of how things work for us, but ultimately we need to find what works for us. So for me, I need to see this laid out. I'm writing a nonfiction book. I'm not doing necessarily the arc of a fiction book in the character development and the what do you call it, like creating the worlds. And so for me, I went to our art supply closet because I didn't want to go out and well, I was going to go out and buy a trifold like you use for presentations because I need to see it. So instead I found smaller pieces that we had probably from some school project way back when. And what I am going to do is that I've mentioned Kelly Notaris before, and she wrote the book You Were Born to Write. I hope I got that right. And it was my Bible as I wrote book 1 for nonfiction writers, and specifically around transformational type nonfiction like I write. She gives structure, and structure makes it so it's easier on you as the author, but it also makes it easier for the readers to follow along. They have an expectation of what is going to come next, so their thinking brain isn't saying, oh, this one chapter is extra long, or I wonder what's going to come next, or oh, wait, I know what's coming next, so I need to pay attention here, or I know there are exercises at the end of this chapter. So I'm going to once again follow Kelly's lead on structure. However, I'm going to take it a step further and almost set it up like she did the book, in that the book is broken into 4 sections. So what I'm going to do is take 4 pieces of paper here, and I'm going to pause along the line so that I don't bore all of you, but I'm going to set these up, and I already have my 4 sections named, at least the general concept of them. Maybe I'll tweak them to make them look a little bit prettier. So I'm going to take those 4 sections, and then within each of those 4 sections is going to be 3 chapters, because I wanted the book to be 12 chapters like my last one with the introduction, so 13 in all. And not that I would restrict myself and only do that, but it just kind of fell into place like it did last time. So I have sticky notes. So let me lean, excuse me for a second. We should have had the stuff closer. I have my sticky notes here. I stole them from my son's school area. I don't think he'll miss them. They were still in the wrap, and we bought them in September, so I think I'm good. So the 3 colors work out well. We're gonna have one color being my pink, which will be the 4 sections. We'll have the next color, which will be the 3 chapters within each of those sections. And then within each of the chapters are kind of sub-chapters, I guess, and there are 3 of those. So that's what these are. And the reason I want to do this is I need to see it laid out. I need to then kind of create, I guess, in a way that each of these will have their own arc, as far as if I share a story of my journey, if I share, like I said, exercises, if I share the general premise of that, you know, as an intro, and then bringing it to a conclusion, as far as what you or whoever as the reader can learn from it. So I felt like I had all those general things already placed out, but I didn't want to duplicate. I wanted to have a good feel of where I was going to share different stories and not put one in one place that really belonged over here. So I want it all stickied out. And so these are the first 3 sets of levels, but I think they'll be within that little sticky notes that will have some of the kind of key points that I want to make within those. And then I can start writing, because I realized that I started writing chapter 1 and I liked it. However, it was starting to be a little bit too much of a struggle than it needed to be, because I have the information. It's just I wasn't prepared. I got too excited about starting the book and not creating the full structure. Outline is so key. And I think I know I've mentioned in a prior video, and then I'm going to pause for a minute and get it all set up and show you. Scrivener, my mainer, is a outline. It's not even an app, because you download it and it's on your computer. Again, I'm not super techie. And I used it for book 1, and it's awesome versus doing it in Word, which you do end up transferring it to Word. But what Scrivener allows you to do is I can set up these sticky notes basically in the I'm gonna call it an app. I don't know what it's called. And if I decide that that story that I put in chapter 3 really belongs in chapter 1, it's a click and a move, and it's just easier to maneuver things around. If I decide today I don't feel like working, since I have this all outlined, I just don't have it in me to work on chapter 2 and that topic, I can hop over to chapter 7 even and work on that, or even that subchapter of it, and it's all blocked out. And so I would highly recommend that if anybody's looking. But so for today, hold on, let me do this real quickly and then we can jump back in. Okay, that part is now done, and I'll just hold one up. So I have 4 of these little babies. They're not very fancy because I did it fast. So I am going to sit with those. I'm going to begin work today and keep drilling down so that when I sit to write, it's not going to be going back to research as much or question what I put in there. I'll know that it's in the right spot. Granted, I will have to move stuff around, but I still have a few days before the end of the month, before the last video of the month. So I'm going to get to work over the next few days and see how much I can get done before I put this video out, and we'll go from there. Okay. I have been busy. I am not done. I still have one more good day before I have to report in as to my final accomplishments, but I did want to touch base, and this is my writing area, and I want to share this with you. So I put what's important to me. As I mentioned in my last video, I think, which was Stephen King's kind of what he does and his routines and stuff. He feels that it's good to have your set space, your sacred space, door shut, that people respect what you're doing in here. So this is my space where I write for the most part, I would say. And things that are important to me to bring in, you know, I've seen people have little creatures and things like that. This sphere, it's a golden sheen obsidian, I was called to get before I wrote my last book. And so I would sit here kind of, you know, as I'm thinking through things and pondering. And so this is hopefully my good luck charm. So I have that sitting here. Oops. I always like to have a candle, which I just lit here, a cleaner space. This may be messy for some of you, but for me, this is pretty clean. Oh, this crystal here is kind of my grounding one. I call it my working crystal because it's not as fragile as some of my other ones. And I can sit here and I do the same thing as with the obsidian. And these are books that yesterday, as I was kind of working through some things, these books all kind of popped off as I remembered something, maybe a topic or whatever it is, and I want to reference those. So this is my setup. I try to drink lots of water, keep things going through. And yeah, so from the point that I left you last time, I had kind of gritted it all out. I had been working, it wasn't a recent thing. In fact, I found some notes that I started doing this in the summer of 2022. So we're coming up on 2 years. And at this point, my feeling is I have to birth this book or it is not going to be birthed. So I'm really in a good place with it. And I've given so much thought to each of these things that this isn't just me sitting down now to do this. And I did want to share a couple of things with you, is that as far as just sitting down and writing, I don't do that if you haven't picked up on this. So this is my prior book. This is about the size that I wanted it. It is, when all said and done, 163 pages long. It came in, I believe, at around 57,000 words. So that is my objective on this one as well. Probably the same as I mentioned before, 13 chapters, 12 chapters with an introduction. And so how I drill that down is that if I set 60,000 as a goal, because you'll chop some out of it, and you may start higher than 60 and then bring it down a little bit, is that I look at just the 12 chapters primarily and set a goal of 4,500 to 5,000 words. And so if you remember what I just said in the first part of this video, is that each chapter has 3 sub-chapters in it. So I allot 1,000 words per sub-chapter, so there's 3,000 right there, plus the intro to the chapter and kind of a wrap-up and the exercises and stuff, which call it 750, and there's 4,500. And it just gives me the structure, it gives me a goal, and it gives the reader that consistency throughout the book. Again, this isn't a fiction book where there's some longer chapters and whatnot. And I think some of it is author preference as well, because you have some people that prefer the shorter chapters and some people that prefer longer chapters. So that is my goal once again. And yeah, I am going to get started, and I will do one more wrap up before I call this video good and put it out to you. And then we'll report back in the following month. So I totally underestimated by a week how much time I had before I needed to make this video to wrap up the month of April and report back into all of you. So I only had really not even a handful of days to get things done. So again, we had the structure, the sticky notes that we did, and then I drilled it down further from there. I got some nice notes put together. I realized, you know, it's been a couple of years or so, 3 years since I wrote the other book. So I'm starting to remember things that occur along the path. One being, I had this mindset that I wanted to drill down every single chapter before I got writing. But what I found as I started it was, you get excited and you have this fresh information, these fresh ideas, you know, an idea begets, excuse me, another idea, pardon me. And you don't want to lose that momentum. So I started with that first section, so chapter 1, 2, and 3, and I really got into the nitty-gritty of chapter 1 and the 3 subtopics or subchapters below that. And so I paused there, even though I wrote some notes as things came about for some of the other chapters. I really didn't drill down as much, and I reminded myself it's okay to change the plan, so to speak. So I started the first chapter, and I know I mentioned that I had started a little bit, so I did have bits and pieces here and there, but I needed to refine them and make sure they were in the format that I now wanted to carry forward and have throughout the book. So I am happy to report it, and that all took some time, by the way, and I'm trying to cut myself a break. So I can officially report my number count for chapter 1 is up to 2,292. So as I'd mentioned just previously, I shoot for about 4,500 to 5,000 per chapter, depending on the section. So I still have work to do. I am going to try to finish it by the end of this weekend coming up, or by the end of April, truly, because this will be aired, whatever the date is of that Friday. And so I'm still going to give myself a couple days to wrap things up. But my end goal is this. So the first book that I did, The Spiritual Awakening of the Analytical Mind, oh, you can see it right here. I kept it so, I was in a little cocoon, and I kept it so close to my heart, to my vest, to everything. And a lot of people didn't know that I was writing it. I wasn't only coming out as a writer, I was coming out as somebody that would write The Spiritual Awakening of an Analytical Mind, which was far outside of where some people probably viewed me. So it was this really vulnerable, really uncomfortable, really pushing my limits kind of time. And I didn't let anybody read it until I'd already done a full rough draft, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to publish it to that point. And I finally, as I was doing another round of rough editing and kind of finishing the last couple chapters, I let one person read it, and not necessarily to edit it. So I was my own editor for the longest time until it went to the publisher's editor. And I went round and round and round and round and round, and it was really hard for me to release it even to an editor. So not to get in the weeds too much here, but now book 2, I've kind of thrown myself out there. I've acquired a little bit more of a whatever mindset than I had back then, even though I still have insecurities around all of it. But I have in-house, well, not quite in-house yet, my eldest will be returning from freshman year of college around Mother's Day. So in May, mid-May, we'll just say, and is an English Lit major and has already agreed to be my editor. Now, my eldest, if anybody has followed me on the podcast or anything else, reads different books, different genres than I do, and really isn't a big fan of nonfiction, but has a very good eye and mouth to give constructive criticism, and I think is going to be brilliant in whatever they do in life around the literary field. So I am going to pay my child to do my first round of editing. And I feel like this will be my first time getting into more content editing too, because Sam has no qualms about giving feedback and input and direction and things like that. So my goal is to have at least 2, hopefully 3 chapters, which would be that first section of the book, done before Sam returns home. So I'm going to have to bust a butt here. And the reason that I'm putting such urgency on this is that I would love to birth this book, to publish this book in 2024. That is really my goal, which means I need to step up with this. Part of my delays when I published this book was my own insecurities and stalling the process. It's such a mental journey. If any of you have done it or are thinking about doing it, when it's not our field, especially to put something that we produce that's so vulnerable out into the world. And yeah, so at least I've gotten at least over a little hump of that, maybe not the full hump of it. So that's why I'm going to push. So each time I report in, so on a monthly basis at the end of each month, hopefully you'll see big advancements in the book, and you'll enjoy kind of the process or what I've gone through. So this one's probably the most boring of it, but hopefully by the end of May, when I touch in with all of you, I hope to have, wouldn't that be incredible if I had half the book done? I don't anticipate that I can. And with that said, it will be a rough draft of it, because I've learned and I've read that you try not to edit as you go. So try to maybe edit a little bit and move on to the next thing. So what I tend to do is, like, if I write today, I'll probably read what I wrote yesterday, because it's funny how you can replace my with a me or a I with an or whatever it is, and silly little things like that. Or you may just catch something that you're like, oh, I meant this, or what was I thinking on this? So you can change some of those things and just get, and I feel like it helps you get back into the flow of writing for that day. Like it reboots you a little bit. So I will allow myself to do that, but otherwise I don't think I'm going to allow myself to edit. I think I'm going to, when I get to the end of a chapter, I'm going to start, as soon as Sam finishes finals and all, I'm going to start handing the chapters to Sam as they're complete and let Sam do their magic on it. So that's a wrap for today. So not quite one chapter, rough draft of the chapter complete, but a very good start to it. I guess we're halfway there, living on a prayer, perhaps. And I will touch that the end of May, and hopefully we'll see some big leaps and bounds as to where we are. In the meantime, take care, be well, and keep stepping forward.